it's pretty much harmless at this point. But I think that cluelessness or just being unaware of something, I think using it for play, like don't be so serious when you're using it. Don't immediately start trying to they're using it for work. Like, just try it to get comfortable to see how it reacts, and that way you can learn a little bit more about how you might be able to use it.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Law Firm Marketing Minute. As always, I'm your host, Mike, and we have
Eddie.
And we have Steph.
Hi.
This is Steph's first time being on the podcast.
On any podcast.
Oh, any podcast. Oh, wow.
Wow.
So this
surprising, right? I
crushing it already. Wow, you're like a professional.
Yes.
So this is the big moment. This is a big moment. Maybe not as big as, I might consider it to be, because I like to think that the show is a big deal. But
it is.
Okay, thank you. But I figured that Steph would be the perfect person to guest on this podcast episode, because we're going to be talking about AI, and Steph can get into the real technical nitty-gritty.
I don't know about that much.
listen, we had a webinar, free webinar. We do free webinars every month, by the way. But we had a free webinar a couple months back. It was me and Steph, and she was talking about tokens with AI and stuff like that. I had no idea anything about it, and she's just...
He's the guy he wrote Lord of the Rings.
That's Tolkien.
Oh.
Goodness gracious.
Wow.
How dare you offend me?
That was a joke.
Especially at the beginning of the
soft
show.
Soft lawball joke. It was just nice in there.
I'm going to give you all the hard questions.
Got it.
But we wanted to talk today about how a lot of solo or small law firms might misunderstand AI. Really because, I always think back to the South Park episode. The whole, they did their job. Right. You know what I mean? Like, I always think back to that, because that's the general response from a lot of the people who are, anti-AIs, because they, and don't get me wrong, I'm sure there is some cause of worry when it comes to AI.
Yeah, I mean, when you bring up that episode, the people coming through the portal are a lot like AI, and that they're just an amalgamation of every piece of information.
That's true.
And every culture and everything into one thing. So yeah, I think it stands, honestly. Yeah. But yeah. I mean, we won't get too far into talking about South Park episodes.
That's also the first time anyone's ever said amalgamation on this podcast.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Wow, we got a couple firsts already on the show. But let's just talk about, first and foremost, our own, and it could be collective, perspectives on AI. I mean, I've spoken on this show a lot about AI myself, my kind of perspective on it. I'm very pro AI, but I'm also very cautious AI, in a sense where, it's moving very rapidly, and everything that I listen to, all the podcasts and talks that I listen to, they all say something along the lines of, it's moving a lot faster than we thought it would, right? It's growing a lot faster. And then you have the whole AI agents coming out, that sort of thing. That's going to be a whole new level to it. But then you have, what's it called? It's I can't remember the term for it. It's something with AI, but it's basically saying that it has almost like the brain capacity of a human to kind of think like a human. Like right now, our public AI can't really think like a human. It needs our creativity to kind of push it forward. What's your perspective for the audience?
I mean, I have really mixed feelings. Like initially, my mind is always going to jump to like ethics. Or like Dr. Ian Malcolm from Jurassic Park. Who's like, your scientists were so busy trying to figure out whether
never asked whether you should or
right,
could.
They never bothered to ask whether they should. So like the ethical concerns and the legal concerns are kind of being left behind while the technology is advancing so rapidly. I mean, they're doing their best with like copyright laws. But people are generally worried because of that, because it's like the Wild West of the internet at this point. And it's always been the Wild West. Like, we can't seem to tame the internet. Every time we think we have a handle on it, it's like a whole new thing.
That's actually a good kind of image of it, because, it's we're heading into the unknown. We're heading into a new pioneer, so to say, or a new pioneering into
we're on the Oregon Trail.
Yes. And did you ever play Oregon Trail? I'm sure you did.
He invented it.
He
was there.
I played it on the DOS system with the buttons.
No, he was there for the original Oregon Trail.
Yeah, I was on the Oregon Trail.
Yeah, exactly. He was part of the Donner Party, and he ate them first.
I was the one that survived.
Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely.
It.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That is absolutely. I mean,
it got dark really quickly. I mean, I didn't. Okay.
The things that Eddie have said on this podcast, I think that what you said is
tame.
It's very tame.
I sit next to him, so
That's true.
I believe it.
So I forgot to say this at the beginning, but Steph is one of our writers here at Spotlight.
Oh yeah.
She writes alongside Eddie.
Mm-hmm.
For both of you, this is a question kind of for both of you. So you guys have quarterly conversations with clients, and you kind of pick their brains about, okay, hey, what do you want to talk about this quarter?
Mm-hmm.
So I can write blogs about it. Has there been a lot more shift, would you say, towards, I mean, maybe not for every practice area, but for some practice areas, you think there's been a shift towards, hey, I want to kind of include AI or give my take on AI?
What do you mean?
Like obviously if you're writing a blog for, let's say, a business.
Yeah.
A business lawyer.
Yep.
Have you seen like a shift where like you're talking more about AI now than you have in the past?
Not really.
Oh, okay.
It's strange. I mean, I don't think it's come up very often in these quarterly content interviews with us in terms of AI, and I mean it's so strange because I mean we were going to release our trends report coming up in the next couple of months, and a lot of our questions had to do with AI, and there was an overwhelming number of response. A lot of it was for positive. Don't mean to be a spoiler here, but it's out there. I mean, it's strange that you bring it up now because I mean we haven't really had those conversations with our clients, but it's very much on their mind.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah. There are questions and concerns about AI in terms of like originality. Like, is it going to read like everything else? Because you go on any website now and you're going to see pretty much the same things.
In the realm of business law, there's...
yeah, tragically.
It's like that first sentence is like just announces to everybody, I was not written by a human being.
Right. And so those are the things that I hear is, you know, like maybe certain things are not sounding as like personalized, which is why we do the QCIs in the first place, is because we need some of that personalization from the person who's
for sure
we want to hear from. But it also opens some doors for more innovation in terms of tech, because at this point the AI is learning from other AI. There's so many articles written by AI online that it's an echo chamber, and it's going to get more and more. And so we have to be careful as content creators in general to make sure that we're not abusing the ease of AI. But one thing that I use on every QCI is to like organize my notes. Like whatever is said, I'm pretty fast at typing. I might be like 80 words per minute or something on a good day, but it's still not as fast as, you know, as an attorney telling me, you know, what the ins and outs of like an irrevocable trust.
Yeah.
Like there's so much in their mind, and to write as fast as somebody's mind is really hard. So if I get the gist of it, AI is able to kind of bridge that gap for me, so I can get those personalized notes, keep those quotes from clients, and then make sure that I actually know what I'm doing at the end of the day. It's pretty nice.
Yeah. So I want to bring back, I know I said at the beginning about how you know about like AI tokens and that kind of technicality of it and whatnot. Could you, just because I want to, you know, keep my promise that, you know, you would share this information on this podcast, do you mind telling the audience like what AI tokens kind of are and how they work?
Yeah. I'm a visual speaker and a visual learner too, so I'll try to explain it.
What is a visual speaker?
I talk with my hands.
Oh.
You know,
a lot of emphasis.
A lot of hand
all right,
waving,
a lot of jazz
gestures
hands.
that
Got
make
it.
sense to no one, not even myself. But
those of you that are watching on YouTube will you'll
see a lot of hands flying around.
Yeah, you can't hear well unless I like flap hard enough. Anyway,
or if you slap it.
Yeah. So
it's happened.
I don't know where the term tokens come from, but I will continue to use the analogy of like when you go to like Dave and Buster's. Well, now it's not a card. Anyway, or Chuck E. Cheese or something, and you have a limited number of tokens, and once you run out of those tokens, you can't play anymore. And that works for AI with memory. So these tokens are contextual memory that basically it's what the amount of tokens that were given when we use the AI. If they presumably have like a bajillion tokens at OpenAI headquarters, but for us, we're given like around 8,000, I think, per conversation. So
what's that kind of time frame like when they reset? Do you know?
Well, it's per conversation. So you'll have different threads.
Okay.
So you open up a new conversation, and then you start at almost, like full amount, because if you're talking to a specific bot or a GPT that you've made, it has tokens already that it's using up.
Gotcha.
So it's like, I made one of Eddie, for example, and I think
he was a charmer.
Eddie is if you haven't gathered by now, Eddie is the perfect person that we love to pick on.
And he makes such an excellent bot. Like he's very predictable, and he's a funny guy. So it works out.
Way to throw one compliment in there. Thank you.
He's pretty nice sometimes, I guess.
Two compliments. A half a compliment. That's cool.
He, the GPT I made of him is like maybe like 50 plus tokens. The simpler.
I thought you were gonna say 50 plus years old.
Yeah, that too.
There it is again.
He was born a token. So he a token Boston guy. Anyway, he's so yeah, the bot, you keep these GPTs really low in tokens, and so you have to be very careful about the words that you use for context. And then that way, when you join the conversation with it, it's starting as an almost new person. Like it just appeared in the world. It didn't exist before the moment that you opened that conversation.
Yeah.
So the context tokens that you get are really going to be the extent of its memory. It has all of the knowledge of the world, but it doesn't have memories. It doesn't like remember like seeing its kids' first steps or anything. It doesn't have any context, so you have to give it all the context. So these tokens, like every word and punctuation and
even words, like a single word might be more than one token.
Right, a long word like understanding is probably like 2 or 3 tokens right there. Like so every word, like I want to understand, that's like 2 or 3 right there, and then the period at the end of it is a whole other token. So it just kind of knowing about the tokens will remind you to keep things simple. Don't over explain, and it's also important to keep in mind that they're designed to think and talk and act like people. So you wouldn't just shove like a giant prompt, like a computer prompt, like I think I'm good at programming computers, and then say, here you go, AI, like this, do what you need to do. If you were to do that to a person, like 9 times out of 10, it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be what you thought it was going to be, because that person has no context for what you're doing. So you have to give it a purpose. Like I think in Rick and Morty, and like the butter, he's like, what's my purpose? Is you deliver butter. He's like, oh my God. So that's pretty much what you're doing.
You would be a Rick and Morty person.
First couple of seasons. Anyway.
But that's interesting. I what I've seen to kind of work out for me when I'm creating a GPT is that I will have I'll basically have it teach itself in a way, and I'll have a main purpose in mind, but then that main purpose is broken up into steps or different like categories. And then I will say, hey, I need you to become an expert on this category or whatever. So go out, here's the questions that I need you to find out, answer, then report back to me everything in a very, efficient manner. And then I'll copy and paste that into a document, an external document, because on GPTs you can attach a document. So, because I've noticed that when GPTs, when you're going through and you're asking it to do certain things, it doesn't necessarily get everything right, because if you got a lot of things, that you're telling it to do. But what I found works is that if I put everything into an external document, and then I attach that document to it, and I tell it very specifically, hey, this is what I want, but I also want you to reference that document. It works out a lot more efficiently for me, because It's not having to go through all those tokens. It's just analyzing the document that it helped create. Yeah. I don't know if you've tried that out or not.
Sometimes, but it can also make inferences on the document because it's basically glancing over it in a way and like consolidating it in the way. So that's why the context is so important. There is like
for sure
knowing why it's doing something, or knowing in quotations why it's doing something, and for what purpose, like it is serving you. Then it's able to get more information about what you want and do the things that you want it to do. Like, are you is this GPT like a marketing assistant, or is it your marketing assistant? Is it your intern or whatever that you're talking to? So you need to treat it as that person. So like if it's like your marketing intern or whatever, it will kind of behave like a marketing intern. Like maybe it might be a tiny bit inept. I don't. Yeah. There's so many things that it kind of. Not that interns are inept. Well, interns are very important.
Very true. Very true. But you said before, and it was interesting. I actually never really kind of thought it that way. How AI, at least to start off, it wasn't creating anything new. It was just learning from what was already out there. Mm-hmm. But now there's so much AI content out there that it's learning from the other AI content, which isn't really the greatest.
It's like multiplicity. When you start having copies of copies, like the next copy is going to be a little phased out. Like it's just right.
Well, yeah, and then that's with Michael Keaton, right?
Yeah.
The
fifth one is a copy of a copy.
Yeah, it
instead of a copy of the original.
Yeah.
No, but the first 4 are copies of him. The 5th one's a copy of a copy. So like when now we're talking about AI learning from AI, and the whole thing of like Google Goulash. When you take like 3 different Google articles and turn them into one, and you pump it out there, then someone else is taking your article and combining with 3 other ones, and then making more content that way. Yeah.
Well, I think that's probably where like ultimately like the extent of our current public AI system ends, right? Is at that point where there's so much AI content out there that it's not really learning anymore. Mm-hmm. It's just recycling, right? So I feel like that's probably why we have like these new agents coming out in the next year or so, and then I forget the term for it, but it's basically like the human intelligence aspect for it. I think it's like AGI or something like that. I think it's like artificial general intelligence or something.
That's another thing about machine learning is we're not getting, it's still learning from us whenever we interact with it. Mm-hmm. But now they're looking for trickier ways to learn from other people, because they can't keep taking content and learning from content over and over again, because that regurgitation. So like if you have an iPhone, if you look at your iPhone, you have the Apple AI that's learning from you and the way that you use your phone. So if you don't want your Apple AI to be watching what you do on your phone to learn from you, then you should probably check out your settings. So you're going to see stuff like that, like when you use apps, like the way that you talk through apps, like in Messenger, and that's how they're creating more human-like behaviors, is just by observing the way so when we're talking about privacy issues, like that's one of the big ones, is pretty much everything you do online is used to learn or for machine learning.
For sure. So we'll have one more question, and when we'll go around the room, and each of us will take like about a minute each answering this question, and then we'll kind of wrap it up. The question is, do you believe currently, as it stands, the general public, actually, you know what, let's make it a little more niche down. Do you believe that our audience, solo and small law firms, misunderstand AI? You can go first.
Oh, I get to go first.
You're guest. You get to go first.
I'm the guest. I guess that makes sense. I don't think that there's a misunderstanding. I think that I think people generally know what it's doing. I don't think that they understand how it applies to them. Like humans, just like AI, need context. Like in what context does this apply to me and to my firm? How can I use it? How can I benefit from it? Or sometimes it's like, is this hurting me? Is this good? Probably not. I mean, it's pretty much harmless at this point. But I think that cluelessness or just being unaware of something, I think using it for play. Like, don't be so serious when you're using it. Don't immediately start trying to they're using it for work. Maybe just try talking to it. Like, just make it a fun game. Like, my kids talk to AI all the time and they have ridiculous conversations with it. Like, just try it to get comfortable to see how it reacts, and that way you can learn a little bit more about how you might be able to use it.
For sure. Eddie?
When I was in 4th grade, I wrote my book report on a typewriter. That is a fact. That really did happen.
Of course it did.
So I don't think there are people that misunderstand AI in any way that they misunderstand what Microsoft Word was or what Microsoft Word is or what Google is. I think there's a spectrum of people that are just unfamiliar with how to use it and what its drawbacks and what its pluses are and how to incorporate it into their firm.
I'm kind of going to go on a more aggressive approach to it. I think that it is misunderstood, but I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that I think that the reason why it's misunderstood is because I think that there's a lot more negative connotation associated with it rather than opportunistic. I mean, for me, I see like the huge opportunity using it. I mean, it saves you so much time. You can get a lot more done during the day, and it's going to lead to ultimately, hopefully, a better life. I think that especially in the health realm, I see these things popping up where it's like able to scan you basically and say, hey, you're trending towards blank or whatever. And maybe I'm misunderstanding the market, but that's just kind of like my view of what I've heard. So. But yeah, I appreciate you guys being on the podcast.
Anytime, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
How was your first experience on the podcast?
It was magical.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
I did see some of the lights kind of like, do a little sparkle.
She used a lot of hand motions.
Yeah, I mean, I may not be Sophia, but I do bring a little.
No one's Sophia.
And we thank God for that every single day. No, I'm just kidding.
Love you, Sophia.
Everyone listening, thank you for listening. If you could leave a review, it helps grow the show. And have a terrific weekend.